I get the vibe that you're distant. There's something about you that's different. I see it in your eyes. Something isn't right. Tell me again what I'm missing. 'Cause you're fading out. We've been here before. Tell me again, just tell me again, and I'll make it right. Don't go through that door. Tell me again, just tell me again, and I'll make it right. It is a lie when you tell me that nothing is wrong, just leave it be. But I see it in your eyes. Something isn't right. Tell me again what I'm missing. 'Cause you're fading out. We've been here before. Tell me again, just tell me again, and I'll make it right. Don't go through that door. Tell me again, just tell me again, and I'll
minute. Happy Tuesday, Rodney. How are you, man?
I'm doing great. How are you, Andy?
You know, I'm fine. Is my face really bright on this side? It's because I got this huge monitor and it's like a white.
I think it's
It's
that orange shirt you got in that's saying "Go Vols." Looks nice.
I thought I'd. I can fix that. Actually, I'll show you what I can do with that. I can tone that down just a little.
Hey, I'm a Vol fan, so keep it going.
Yeah, I can change colors. I can do a number of different things on there. Put a backdrop. Anyway, so hope you're well. The heat seems to be tolerable these days.
Oh man, it's going to be 90, like 97 for the rest of this week.
Oh, it is. Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah, I didn't.
it's tolerable as long as you're inside.
Yeah, well, it's just you're hearing about the news of people like hitting 110, 115, that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
Wowie, wow.
yeah, yeah. It's what we have. So we had a bunch of days last year over 90 degrees. What was it, 30 days in a row or something over
It was
90
a bunch.
degrees?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I just remember when I first moved here, coming from Colorado, it took me 6 months in the cold and the heat to get used to the humidity. Because if you're familiar with Colorado, if it's 20% humidity, everybody's going, whoo,
Yeah.
oh man,
Mhm.
you can't stand it. And around here, if it's 50, you're like, oh, it's
Yeah,
it's
it's dry.
my skin's crackling. It took a
Yeah, I have a
while.
good friend. He moved up here. Just met him last year, and we got to be pretty good friends. He's from San Diego, so it's Johnny San Diego. Of course, that's the nickname for him. But yeah, and he likes talking about that humidity. He comes from a awesome climate, in San Diego. So
Yeah, the times that I've been to San Diego were just, I fell in love. I really, really good. So it is going to be a kind of a frantic day. We've got a lot of stuff to talk about and look at, and in particular, I'm really excited about the stuff that you shared, Rodney. We're going to be talking about those things, and but first, I think we should probably get into Rodney's race.
that's it. Okay.
That's right.
All right,
Here we go. Bing.
here we go.
Good.
We start out, you can see we're down 12 basis points today, which isn't a huge move. I think everybody's just kind of waiting on this news with the Feds moving that interest rate. That's tomorrow, right? Tomorrow?
It's big 0.25 coming our way, I think.
I think it is. So, and scroll down a little bit. You can see what we've done over. I'm gonna go back. Let's see here. Back in here, May. This was when we started getting news about the debt ceiling, and we got some good news. It got better for a while, and then it took a dip. The red hurt us, and then we've started climbing back here. So, I think it's just hanging pretty tight until we see what's going on with this Fed rate hike. But
Mm-hmm.
we are again under this 25-day moving average, which is this line right here.
Right.
We've broken through a few times and butted up against this ceiling. So we got a little bit of room to grow right here in this ceiling. So we'll wait and see what happens when the Fed says. But it's pretty much not much trading going on the last few weeks. It's been pretty docile.
Got it. And did you have another screen you wanted to share?
Not right now. I'll share that one in a bit. Well, yeah, when we talk about the article of that one article, I think we're talking. I'll describe.
Okay. And that was going to be Don't Wait. Is that correct? Is that
I
the
believe
article?
so. Yes.
Okay. All right. So, well, all right. Let's hit a couple of things. We can hit that anytime you want. You want to do that now?
Yeah, sure. Let me
Okay.
pull it up here.
We'll hop right on there. for anybody that's watching, Rodney and I have coordinated sheets that help us stay on track. And so when we're talking, we don't mean to be talking over your head or anything, but that's what we're doing. We're coordinating our
Well,
maybe
yeah, I
our
can talk. I won't be. I apologize, Andy. I don't have it. It's me and my other computer. But we can talk about it. I still kind of know the numbers of it, but it's
Well, I'll tell you what, you go ahead, start. Here's the article, and we're going to do it this way. Bang, bing. Yeah. Don't wait for the mortgage rates to drop. Here's what home buyers should do instead. And that's a fairly I'm going to say risky. I don't know. I don't know what people would maybe think of. That's a risk. It's just a risky kind of a title. So, but anyway, so you do that, and I'll get your LLP thing going.
Gotcha. Well, it's the home buyers are the article talks about today's home buyers are likely feeling the strain on their purchase power as the affordability of home ownership shrinks. We have talked about that, right? Prices have gone up, rates have gone up, and most people's income hasn't increased as fast as those two other factors, which decreases your affordability, right? Um, there's a lot of stuff in this article. It talked about it started out around 3% to start of 2022 and shot up about 7% by end of 2023. And we've all talked about that. But the number one thing I loved about this article, it talks about 5 things buyers can do to prepare for when rates fall. Okay. One, get your credit score in line. Today, more than ever, your credit score is by far the number one factor in determining what your rate will be. So, if you know you're buying, it makes more sense now to work on your credit than it ever did before. And when we get the LLPAs pulled up, I'll show you what I'm talking about with theirs. So, they talk about, this article talks about annualcreditreport.com. It'll allow you to monitor credit on a weekly basis. I don't believe you need to monitor it on a weekly basis. If you're paying your bills on time, you need to pull that once or twice a year at most, and making sure, do a little bit of research on it too, because the thing about the credit report, in my opinion, the only thing that the credit report never understands is how much money you make. And I think it's a little bit of a disservice, because if somebody that's manages their money very well and say they have a credit card and their limits only say $7,000, but they say they make $300,000 a year and they want to go out and buy something. So what they can do is they'll go out and buy it on that credit card, and it bumps up against their limit. But they could have $50,000 in reserve, and it never shows. It just shows that they're kind of maxed out in their credit, and they get kind of dinged in their credit score for that. So things like making sure your balance on your credit cards in proportion to what the limits are actually affects your score. So things like that, kind of doing some homework and figuring out what would make your score better.
Now, I've got that slide for you. Are you ready for that?
Yeah, throw it up here. So here's what I'm talking about. If you're a conventional purchase, these new LLPAs, see, if you look at the top line, 740 plus used to be our top tier, meaning if you had more than a 740 score, you got the best rate possible. Since these come out, you can see now our top tier is greater than 780. So that's honestly where you want to be now, as your credit score up to 780. Because if you look on the very top line, 780 credit score, and you're putting, say, 10% down or 5% down, if you look at those top two things right there where I got my cursor, 85 to 90% and 90 to 95, there is a 0% points hit on your rate right there.
Right.
So you get the best rate that Fannie offers right there, 85 to 90 with a perfect credit score. Now let's just say you have a 680, and you're wanting to put, say, even at 30% down, look what it starts to happen. If you got 680, and you put 30% down, you get a -8 here. But look down here at 660. Let's compare that one. At 80% down, you're paying almost a full point of a percentage at 660 credit versus a 780.
Wow.
And then kind of the same thing, down here, you look at these big hits, 95%, 1.75 points for that hit there, 1% versus 0 there. So that's the big deal on why you want your credit. For me, that's the biggest reason. The other thing, the 5 things they talked about, one was credit, which that's number 1, number 2, and number 3 in my opinion.
Right.
It talked about save for a larger down payment. As you can see in the LLPA, that's not always the case. You could potentially see here, if you put 30% down at 740 score, you get charged 0.125. At 90%, you're getting a 3/8 credit back here. Okay, so that actually is cheaper to put less money down. So the number 2 here is kind of a point, but now the difference is you might have mortgage insurance there, right? So that's a different thing. But just the down payment itself may not make it cheaper for you.
No. Huh.
And then improve your debt to income ratio. That's the one they removed from the debt. That's the one they removed from the LLPA by taking it out because it's too hard to charge right now. So the debt to income ratio will definitely help you qualify. Number 4, explore all of your options. That's definitely a great piece of advice. Look at the different loan types that either the house qualifies for or that you qualify for. And then the last here, compare offers from multiple. And that's another great piece of advice. You can compare the lender fees and the rate. And the pro tip I'll give you on this one is just make sure you're doing it on the same day, because if you shop lenders on different days, the rate, you're not getting an accurate reflection of either company. Because once you go to the next day, you've got new rates for both companies. So
I never thought about that. So, I mean, if you were shopping or comparing rates, whatever, which that's just a human thing. If you did that on Monday for one person or one company and then Wednesday for another one, they could be different just by default because of the different day.
Right. You could actually go, somebody could be lower Wednesday and the company that gave you the quote on Monday could be a lot lower than them on Wednesday. Right. So you really have to do it. And then you only have to do the lender fees, because the title, the taxes, the insurance, all that, state fees, all that's going to be the same no matter what lender you go with.
One thing that caught my eye that people may or may not be familiar with is this USDA loan stuff. And I'll bet, where did it go? There we go. Is that something that we need to mention? I mean, is that?
Yeah, USDA is a great program. They are definitely. We do several of them. They're typically in rural areas or just not. They're rural now, but sometimes these maps are years old, like 5 to 10 years old when they do these USDA maps. So what was rural at one time may not be so rural now, and they actually just increase the income limits on these as well. So anytime there's a USDA, basically you can always jump online and just put USDA property eligibility or something like that, and you can pull it up, and anybody can pull it up, and you just put the address in there and it tells you if it's eligible or not.
And you may have said this when I was clicking around. I probably don't listen like I should, but what he's saying, the way USDA works is that it is zip code specific, maybe not.
I think it's
Address
census tract. Maybe like not everything in that zip code may be eligible, but it's pretty close.
census
It's a
tract. Yeah,
defined area.
right. And so, but the whole purpose of USDA loans is not to have better stakes, which is first time I thought about it, is like they're doing stakes
Yeah.
and real estate. What's up with that?
Yeah.
You know, this is a
Yeah.
ribeye craftsman home. What? But what they're doing is they're trying to populate less populated areas. I think is probably what it is. Isn't that?
Yeah, and it's a way. It's a zero down payment option. So it's got a lower mortgage insurance as well. So it's a very good program. It's just they used to call it the Farmers Home Loan,
Right.
USDA. They had all kinds of names for it, but yeah, it's just a USDA loan. Some people still call it Farmers Home Loan. Yeah, but it's just for a little bit out, and it's a great zero down program with reduced MI.
Yeah, yeah. The so in this article, I thought this was a particularly good article. Had a lot of meat in it, and for anybody that's looking for a house these days, and it actually touches on that somewhere in this article or one of the others that I looked at, is that the people that are looking for housing these days are in the category of what they're calling it is necessity. Not emergency, but if you are getting a new job in a new city and you got two choices, you can go rent there and your family stays, or you can move the whole family. That would be a necessity thing. A relationship change, in most cases. I say most cases on purpose, that would be a change as well. So,
Yes.
but is that going to be the lion's share of the purchases these days? My vote is probably the majority. What do you think on that?
I think so. I think I think that we've got the golden handcuffs with these people right now, with a lot of people with just lower rates are just hanging on right now until they get a little bit better.
Yeah, and boy, oh boy, you get a lot of. Sorry, here we go. There is a lot in the news these days about the golden handcuffs, the people locked in. I mean, there's a lot. I mean, they're attributing a lot to what's going on to exactly that.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it is. I mean, I've always said while it was going on for so many years, we had such low rates for forever. I'm like, I just don't know how this is going to end. And it's crystal clear now. It's coming crystal clear that it's going to drag on for a while because everybody likes they don't want to trade right now.
Well, even if they don't like the house, they're not going to spend that kind of money to get one they like better. It's just they're not going to do that. But the thing, and we've talked about this a number of times, is that what that does is every day, you'd have to kind of use your imagination on this, and I'm pretty good at that. Every day that goes on, more and more people starting to get the idea of, I'd like to move for whatever reason. It could be the neighborhood. It could be a bigger house, a smaller house, whatever. But they're not in a position where they have to move. But the desire is there, but the motivation perhaps isn't completely locked in. Every day that goes on, we're going to be building up on that pent-up demand that we've talked about more and more. And all this stuff today is going to circle around whatever. When something breaks, and I don't mean broken in a bad way, but when things change dramatically, we have to pay attention to that pent-up demand big time, I think.
I think it's going to, for the majority of the cities like we're in, like a decent sized metro area, that's what a lot of people are faced with, is just They would love to move, but in my opinion, I think it's just maybe a little bit too difficult right now to move. Meaning, if you still find a house that you love, you might be in multiple offer situation. You know, and they may not want you to take a contingency on you selling yours. So that's the thing. It's still not a great, like, for me, like, it wouldn't be fun. Like, it's fun. To me, it'd be fun to go buy a house if I had 50 choices.
That's exactly right.
But when I got three, and I know I'm competing against somebody, all three of them not selling, I'm competing, and everybody else is not selling a house or moving in from out of town. I think that's what drives, like, somebody like me in this market from selling mine and trying to buy.
Yeah, and it continues on this, and it says how to approach today's housing market. And I thought this is really brilliant the way this is laid out. Patience is the key when it comes to the housing market. And I think that, Rodney, you agree with me on this. The only exception is if you're in a position where you want to buy a house, but it's not perfect, you should really consider your steps on that. However, there is one condition, and that is if you find the house of your dreams, this is the one you've been waiting for. Perhaps it's a bit too broad, your whole life, I don't know. But if you find the house of your dreams, and sometimes you do, you know what? Sometimes you just have to buy them. That's going to be the one exception I would make. Would that be?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, you're going to manage your finances or manage your debt like you're going to do at any time and point in your life. You're going to, if you got a high percentage rate on your mortgage, you're going to refinance it when it comes time. I mean, so yes, if you find the house that you're going to be happy in forever, why not pay a few thousand more a year for, say, even if it's 4 or 5 years? Pay more interest for 4 or 5 years for a house that you're gonna love. That's a small price to pay.
And that changes the calculation completely. If you're going to stay there for a long time, that changes everything.
Right. And I've said it a million times, but when I'm talking, 99% on this show, when I'm talking about somebody who's going to be buying to live in a house,
right?
Not,
an investor.
Like if we have an investor series or something, I'm gonna have to sit back and really calculate some numbers on rent roll and what's it going to cost, and is it good right now can you go buy a property with these prices where they're at and turn around and rent it and still cash flow? Right. I don't know that, so that's what, that's the conversation I would want to have with somebody as an investor.
And I think we both know people that are in that game, and they have a spreadsheet, and if the ROI or if their percentage is off by a 1%, it's a no-go for them. It's strictly numbers, man.
Right. They're looking at you, it's their investment. It's just like a stock to them. That rent roll is key.
Yep. And so it mentions about setting realistic expectations. I think guys like us, here's what we know is that nobody knows what they're talking about. You can't move a week ahead, predict a week ahead with any certainty at all. I mean, you can only judge on what you see in front of you today. That's my humble opinion,
Right. Yeah. Nobody can predict it.
And yet you'll see people predicting it all the time.
Yeah. we get, and I get on here and I either agree or disagree with the prediction, which is pretty much the same thing as making a prediction. But, I'm also the first one to say that, I said the rates were going to be lower, and then they went up for 19 straight years. So,
So it mentions monitor the trends in your market. Inventory is going to be different. Now, they're talking about in 19 different districts for the feds, housing prices have come down 19, and I don't know what the total number is, but that seems to be a bunch. But monitor the trend in your area. And you know what? Unless you're in the business, you're going to have to talk to somebody that is in the
Right.
business. You're going to have to get information from the source. Be careful if you're going to be internet searching. And I've got one example today of something that you'll want to pay attention to if you're doing a lot of searching. But talk to somebody that knows about the inventory. Talk to somebody that knows about money, like Rodney with USDA or whatever. Bargaining power. Bargaining power shifts. That's a case-by-case basis. We've talked about that numerous times, that you show me a house that's one day on the market and it's in perfect condition and it's priced right, you don't have a lot of bargaining power.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
But you show me a house that's been on the market 50 days and it's been sitting there and there's cobwebs starting to grow on the for sale sign in the yard, you do have bargaining power. So bargaining power isn't a time thing for the market itself. It's a case-by-case situation with each and every house, I'm telling you.
Right,
and you need
right.
somebody to help you interpret that.
Yeah, I mean, that's just like, I felt like there was a good example of a house you were working on, and it was in a little pocket, it was in a little pocket of where I think people wanted to be, which, may have probably helped that value out a little bit. So that's exactly right. I mean, without local people telling you it's, or trends like that neighborhood or those two streets or wherever it is.
I think we can, because we're non-specific, I think we can tell a story about a house like that.
Yeah.
So this particular house, won't use any names, addresses, or anything of the sort, but I'm telling you this is true, that it sold for a certain amount of money. And it was, we're going to say, in the low sixes. Well, that contract fell apart for one reason or another. And it was for one reason or another. So we put it back on the market, and lo and behold, we got a bunch more money for the house. It sold again for more money. And so it goes to show you that none of these prices are carved in stone. It depends on the interpretation of the buyer of the value of the house. Because the second people that bought it saw the neighborhood, that was the value for them. The first one was more worried about, well, whatever they were worried about, whatever they were worried about. But it just goes to show you, case by case. Bargaining power is case by case. And the reason I give you that story is a person that didn't care was able to bargain because they didn't care.
Yeah.
The second person lost a little of that bargaining power because apparently they weren't going to miss this place. This is kind of the house of their dreams, And so that's why, plug into somebody that knows that game a little bit.
Exactly. Yeah.
I thought that was really good. Anyway, so to finish up on this particular article, this is make the right home buying decision for you. Point made just only a moment ago. But if you find the right house for you, that's the one exception. If you're ready to go, your finances are good, your lender says you're good without stretching the limit too much, pull the trigger and you're going to be all right. And especially if you're going to live there a while. I mean,
absolutely, yeah.
Enjoy your life. I can tell you, for me, a personal experience, because there's a lot of people. There's a lot of people that rent still, and there's a. Did you see that article? Anyway, when we're going to bring that up in a minute. When I bought a house, I felt so differently about my life, and I'm not trying to sell anybody. Hey, Philip, I'm not trying to sell anybody on buying a house. I'm just telling you, for me, it was honest to goodness changing the way I felt about myself and the world around me when I bought a house, and I just did. So I don't know where I was going with that.
I mean, I remember the feeling that first time I drove in my driveway after buying a house, and I'm telling you, this house wasn't special. I bought it was like I mean, you could probably there's rich families with dogs that had a better house than this, right? So, um, yeah, it was. But unity, a sense of pride. It's a big accomplishment for for a young family, young person.
Yeah, I remember when I bought when I what caused me to buy my last place is because it's on a lake. Now I say a lake, and you get these Lake Michigan ideas in your head, or Tim's Ford Lake. I went there this weekend, and you get those kind. It's not that. It's several acres and it's large, but it's not one of those lakes. But that's what drew me to this place. I mean, you'd look out the kitchen window, and I'm looking at a lake and a fountain, and I just love that to death. But everything, when I bought it, it was muggly. It had been rented for 10 years, and it was just in terrible condition. And so when I pulled in my driveway, the only thing, the theory that I bought it on was, at least I've got one thing that I love about the house that isn't going to change, and that's I get to look at water every day.
Yeah.
And then, and that's proven to be true. I got in and painted it and made it nice, and it's wonderful now. But every day I come home and I do the same thing. I go to the kitchen, look out my kitchen window at my water and my fountain, and
what would you do if you see me down there laying under some kind of ghillie suit with my shotgun, waiting for them Canadians to come back that you feed all the time?
I would probably call the HOA board and say, hey, there's a guy with a gun, because at this point, if you're down there looking like that with a gun, you're not right. I'm friends with him, but he doesn't look right.
I know you got a lot of Canadian geese on that lake.
Oh, man. Yeah, and they're gone now. They all hustled out of town. They heard you talking, so they said they left. So, okay. So we got this next article. Going to run across this really quick. But thank you for bringing that to the show, that first article, Rodney. That was really good. I mean, that's good stuff. But Robert Shiller, and this guy, we're going to have a good conversation about this. Robert Shiller, the guy that is part and parcel to the Case-Shiller, I think that it's actually called the U.S. CoreLogic Case-Shiller Home Index, I think is what the actual name is. But he says a decades-long rally in home prices, rally meaning prices are going up, could end when the Fed wraps its hiking cycle, which may not be this month, but may be next month. Now, as I read through this, before I mention this, Rodney, what are your thoughts about his take on that?
First of all, let's just make this clear. His name is Shiller, and there is a S&P CoreLogic Case-Shiller Index. So for him to be, and he's from Harvard, I think, right? He's so this guy's forgot more about monetary policy than I'll ever. So let me say that, but I vehemently disagree with him. I do not think that the rising interest rates have been, he calls it, a positive influence on the market. He says that people are buying right now are buying because they fear the rates are getting worse. And that's what's fueling right now our market. And I disagree with that. I disagree with it wholeheartedly.
And I'm bringing this up because that was exactly my point.
I think he is wrong about that. I think that my opinion is people are buying because they want to buy or they have to buy.
Right.
And and a lot of Americans should not be afraid of buying right now because rates it's just 7%. It's not 50%.
Correct.
Right. They've only been lower for a certain period of time in our history. So, if you look over the course, 7% is still probably below average of what a mortgage rate has been. It's just not what we're used to seeing over the last 10 years. So I don't think that Americans are like rushing to the gate to get this 7% rate like he's thinking before it goes to 8 or 9%. And then when he's saying when he stops raising it, people are going to stop because we're at the end. No, that don't make any sense at all.
But I understand it. I understand his logic, and I am going to trailer on, or I'm going to hook to what you said was this guy's really smart, and he knows more about economics than most of the country combined, probably, you know.
I mean, there's no limit to this guy's knowledge.
Yeah. But I'm allowed to have an opinion too, and we get to see it in the real world. And the fact, here's what I think. I was almost going to say the fact of the matter. Don't say that. Here's what I think is going to happen when they stop hiking rates and the mortgage rates start to trickle down or start to go down a little bit. I think that there's people out there, a large number of people. The pent-up demand, I bet, is way bigger than we think. I bet it's way bigger than we think. That there's a number in somebody's head, a certain group of people that are saying, when it gets to 6-8, we're going, honey, because they're financially prepared. We're ready. And somebody else is going, when it's 6, 7, 8, we're good to go. When we're going to talk to a lender and try to get that locked in, however that works. I don't know if you can do that. Maybe you can. Can you? I don't know. Can you?
You can lock. Some people can lock in a property, and some people can lock in a period of time.
Okay.
Like we have to have a property. There's a few companies out there that lock you in just on nothing, and you have a certain period of time to find a property.
Got it. Okay. But there's people that's going to be 6.9. We're good to go. I'm just telling you that we're going to see as the numbers go down. But there's always going to be those people, and I might count myself in that. I've shown tendencies to where, well, I'm going to wait and see if it doesn't drop another 5 basis points. You know, I might be that guy for a little bit. But still, there's going to be that magic number. When it hits 6, 7, I'm going. If that house is still there, Margaret, we're going.
Yeah, and I think as soon as they hear rates have improved 3 times on the news, it's going to trigger people. I mean, things like that. It's I'm with you. It's I don't know if they particularly have a number in mind, but I think that they're going to know when it gets there, and it's going to prompt them to start looking and checking and things like that.
Well, and I was just going to say, and you know what the clue is going to be? Showing time on its statistics on the number of people setting tours. It's going to be the number of with RealTracks. There's a thing called public views that we watch behind the scenes. Like a particular house goes up, you can see the public views. It's non-specific; it doesn't tell you who did it. But if it's 1,000 or 10,000 or whatever, when those numbers start to tickle people's reticular activator, because that's what it is, when people start getting interested, they're clicking and tapping and they're making stuff happen. It shows up in those public views. You'll be able to see that. And then all of a sudden, the dam will break. Maybe not, but because I think the numbers are going to come down slowly enough, we're going to keep reaching more and more people, because there's somebody out there going, I'm not doing anything until it's 6.2. Well,
right. Yeah. Hang on, it'll get there. I mean,
hang on. That's right.
February next year, whatever. We don't know, but it's going to get there.
Your house is going to cost 10% more, perhaps 5% according to NAR, but still, you'll be happy with your 6.2. Good. So
I just didn't understand why he called it unusual behavior. Because it is unusual if you're looking at it from his perspective. But if you look at it from my perspective, like, hey, people aren't buying because of rates, because of the handcuff situation, because only people are necessity purchasers or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
that this is not unusual what we're seeing, in my opinion. But if you're looking at it from his standpoint, I guess this is unusual behavior because I'm like, he's coming from a different angle.
Yeah, he's coming at it from like a 50-year span. Oh, look at that. It's a blip. He's really zoomed out.
Yeah, I mean,
and we're zoomed into like, shit, it's Wednesday,
yeah. And he even mentions, like the guy I listened to, Barry Habib, you know, when you slow down these rate hikes, I think it's going to increase. It's going to increase home purchases, which will increase the demand on already lower inventory. Yeah. I mean, I don't see it. I don't see house pricing going down with that. But
I don't either, because you start buying up the houses that aren't there, and all of a sudden it's multiple offers, and everybody's fist fighting in the streets again. Like back in the day.
I say that with a helmet on because the guy is Shiller, right? I mean, 'cause he is. I mean, he actually is the case.
With all due respect, sir, if you happen to be watching, we love you.
Yeah. I'm just disagreeing this one time.
Sorry, but then he goes on. He touches things that we've. It pleases me that we're with this live stream that we do every week. It pleases me that we're on track with, I think, a sensible take on what's happening. We're not doom and gloom. We're not telling the people to buy when they can't afford it. That's exactly the opposite of what we're saying. But when it's the right house, it's the right house. You can't argue with that, But we're really trying to do all that is humanly possible to be helpful as we can, And that's just, over the years, I've done a lot of business. Rodney is a superstar in his arena. Certainly, I'm way outclassed on that. But,
don't say that.
But we know what it's like on the inside. When he said here, and this is a good point. Here's the reason I say all of that. The housing market retreated and then began to go back up, Shiller pointed out, saying, people don't know what to make of the what is the Fed going to do situation. We've been saying that for weeks. When there's confusion, people stop. It's like, I'm not going to wait. This doesn't make sense. And he's correct, and as long as the Feds are bouncing those numbers around, everybody's gotten used to it a little bit. Now, quarter point, no big deal. Used to be, what?
Right.
Panic.
After years of not raising it at all.
Now it's like a point is 0.25. That's it. Good. All right.
Yeah, we can handle that this week.
It seems to be okay. But that contrasted with the housing market's traditional reputation for being more easily predictable, especially after more than 10 years of steady home price gains the investors assumed would continue. In other words, it's not your, how would you say that? It's not your grandpa's housing market. I don't know. Things have changed, Now, he does say, I agree, but it may be coming to an end. It is the qualifier here, but things may be coming to an end with the end of the interest rate rising cycle. What he's suggesting is things are going to change. His take is that prices are going to drop. I'm not seeing that at all. And that's been our whole argument. But in fairness, says his view runs counter to others on Wall Street. Look at us agreeing with Wall Street, who see the end of the rate hikes as bullish on home prices. Do you know how to explain the bulls and bears on rates and why they go up and down? Have you ever had anybody explain that?
Well, I mean, the mortgage rates.
Well, no. The reason, why is it that bear means that the rates are going down, and why does it mean the bull means the rates are going up?
Oh, I don't know why they come up with that originally.
Well, because a bear swipes down. That's what that is. Yeah. And a bull rears his head and
goes up.
And goes up.
It's
and shows his bald spot right there.
They got that big old bull out at the New York Stock Exchange, right? And that's what that means.
That's when rates are going up and it's a bull market. That's why, because they lift their
Wow, I
head
never
when they're
knew that.
attacking, and bears swipe down. Perhaps it's just one that's fitting, but I like the explanation. Being a songwriter, everything's a story for me. So back to the Wall Street guys. For example, real estate forecaster Barry Habib recently said that an upcoming slowdown would be enough to prompt interest rate cuts, easing mortgages and causing prices to rise 3 to 7% over the next few years. Maybe I don't. Yes, I agree with that more than his dropping idea. I was confused for a second.
Yeah, I mean, he's saying, to 7% over 2 years when we've been going 5%, in 2 months.
Yeah. And then, so anyway, so the feds, they meet, I think that it's Wednesday.
Yes, tomorrow, right? Yes.
Yes. And so the quarter point, so no bet. I bet all bets are off because I think we probably agree.
Yeah, I think hopefully this is the last one. See, and I think after he raises it, if everybody kind of knows, because I think if I kind of know what's going on, everybody kind of knows what's going on, right? Like, I'm not an insider here, but
No, but you know what, Rodney? You remember back in the day when we started this thing, that wasn't, at least for me, that wasn't my main deal. I mean, I didn't pay attention to that, just whatever, I think we've been paying attention to it pretty good in your defense.
I'm just saying, what is the Fed going to do? I think 99% of America knows what they're going to do. They can, and that's what I'm saying is he says it's retreated because the Fed, nobody knows what the Fed's going to do. I think they've been very clear. They've been raising rates until inflation goes to 2% or lower, and they're not there yet. So they're going to keep raising. And I think we're very close now, and everybody feels like this may be the last one, right?
For a while.
Consensus.
Right.
So, if things turn around and inflation does well, but I don't see how that translates, like Shiller saying, into our housing declining in value.
It'll be I think that his theory, and we'll get off of him, his theory that people are buying as interest rate goes up for fear of missing out. That, if we don't buy at 7, it's going to be 7.25 next month.
Yeah.
There hasn't been any signals. The signal has been it's 7%.
Yeah. I haven't run anybody saying, give me this 7 before it goes to 8.
Yeah. No. And it's
I'm
just
sure
like
it happened, but it's just, I don't think it's not been what I've saw.
No, and it just seems to be, unless something really dramatic happens, it bounces, 7.1, I think, a couple of weeks ago down to 6.88, and it keeps that. I know today it launched a little bit over 7. So that brings us to the next article, and this one will go pretty quick, about the housing market rebound pose challenge for Fed's inflation fight, the next one. And this is an interesting, would it be dichotomy? Would that be the correct word?
Mm-hmm.
Here we've got the Feds fighting like heck to get inflation to come down. And I think that they're doing a good job. Could you do better? I have no clue. But we're closer to better than we were a year ago. At the same time, if part of the CPI, the Consumer Price Index, part of it is housing prices. It's like 40% the weighted is housing prices. So if housing prices start to go up, that means inflation is going to heat up. And he's got to put more brakes on. And I'm saying that is a heck of a struggle.
Right, yeah. I don't know how it's going to work when, let's say, this reverses, right, and
Yeah.
rates start going down. I don't see how it can do anything but put pressure on housing prices, meaning unless an inventory drops out of the sky, I don't see it. You know what I'm saying? So I see this as actually putting more pressure on the housing prices, in which again will hurt affordability a little bit. But I'm hoping it's in like I'm hoping there's more one-to-one sales versus what we've seen in the past.
And the way they frame this thing is home prices are again on the rise after a brief dip last year, complicating the Fed's effort to contain inflation and raising questions about how much further policymakers will have to hike interest rates. Demand for homes continues to outpace supply despite a rapid rise in borrowing costs. I mean, I think it's in this article. People have just, and we've talked about this, that to some degree, high interest rate has been normalized in people's minds. Where if we were to talk about 6.8, so people are going to think it's a fire sale for a minute.
Yeah.
You know, what? It's 6.8. God, call them, you know?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely, people are definitely normalizing to, to the rates, which has been around for 2 years now. So,
Yep. And he says if housing begins to recover more meaningfully, that means on a consistent basis, that raises the risk of the inflation is going to be more sticky because as the real estate prices rise, the CPI goes up, the Fed gets I don't want them to get that signal anymore. They're going to want to put on the brakes again. And it says here, policymakers, this is current, policymakers are poised to lift rates by a quarter point following a 2-day policy meeting Wednesday. And I do believe that's like last week, bringing the target of their benchmark rate to 5.25. Projections released to Fed officials in June showed most of them foresee at least one more rate hike by the end of the year. And what I like about all of this and what I've learned is they do signal very clearly what they're going to do so that there's no surprises.
Right, yeah.
No surprises. Inflation is cooling after soaring to a 40-year high last summer. The consumer price index raised by 3% in 12 months ending in June. Yes, but so-called core measures, inflation, which strip out volatile food and energy prices, are providing more stubborn and leading to worries it could take some time to bring price gains down to the Fed's 2% goal. Then we move into this, and this is their point. I'll show you how this. Oops, I'm clicking the wrong screen. That is what's kind of my point. We talked one time about the way they judge prices on homes that, for example, that you and I live in. You take this same house and you treat it like a rental. What would rentals do? So the Bureau of Labor Statistics calculates a CPI, mainly measures shelter through the cost of rent, including what renters pay each month, and an estimate of what homeowners would be paying if they rented out a similar place. If I had to rent out my own home this year versus last year, would I be paying more? You bet I would. Since rents are typically updated once a year, and this is the whole point to my discussion on this, is there's a tremendous lag. It's so slow, and that's, they're going to be reading the numbers anyway, but real estate is so slow. The home price
Is it a quarter behind the CPI? 3 months.
It says here rents are typically updated about once a year, and so I mean they can't check on the same rent every month. I guess I don't know why that would be, but I've heard this for months now how long that lags, and so if home prices stay level, well, then he's going to be happy with it. If they go up based on this rent equivalent, then he's going to put the brakes on harder. And then I'm kind of done with that. I want inflation to be right, but I'd like to get to the other side of this rate hike thing.
Yeah, I'm wondering if once they get to inflation where it's at, I don't think he's going to sit there and mess with it over and over again. I think that to get it there and then turn it loose, hopefully he turns the economy loose and let it,
Yeah. Well, the bottom line, and this kind of finishes up our show for the day, is you're so smart. You said this months ago before anything had given us evidence of the case, but it says the housing market even looks like it may have bottomed out. And you said this, I think back in November, we're going to be dragging along for a while, which I'm sure that's what you meant,
I think we're still dragging along like
we're still, yeah,
bait, right?
And it said, and talk about tight inventory. Good God, it says 1 million homes were for sale last month. I'll show you what that looks like. Well, yikes! I mean, that's like nothing. 1 million, and what? That's just that's a problem. We need to get more houses. The drag from higher rates on housing seems to have come and gone, one economist says. And, and I think that she's right. What she's saying is the people are starting to act, they've normalized it. That's all it is.
100%. Yeah, I agree with that. It's I think it's normalized. It's what creating that versus somebody worried about they're going to get 8%. They need to jump on that 7.
Yeah. And for the people that know that 7's too high for them, they stop worrying about it.
Right.
They're not in the market anymore. I wanted to bring up, there was just 2 things. If you don't mind taking a couple of minutes, is that okay?
100%. Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely.
There's an article that I caught. It's called, and this is for anybody that is watching us currently or watches the replay. And this is about AI, artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence is here, and I'm going to show you in a minute what that means. So when you're doing research on real estate to find out what's going on in the market or just in general what's going on. For example, this one is this title called 5 Reasons the Housing Market is Reversing. Not even completely sure what that means. It says here the 2023 housing market is undergoing a particular phenomenon, a reverse crash. I don't know if I agree with that. It's kind of steady Eddie for a while. But then you'll read through this article, and it's pretty well written, and you get down to the analysts have identified 5 crucial elements contributing to the unexpected tenacity of housing prices, which I suspect is they're talking about.
Right.
I don't know.
The reverse crash.
The reverse crash.
But honestly, I see why everybody thinks it should be a crash. Right.
I do. Yeah.
Because they, not everybody understands the influx of people, how localized some of the markets have become, and the people not selling the handcuff piece. Right. So, yeah, I mean, it's, I see why people always bring up this crash thing because it's like, boom, it's what you should see in this.
We're
market.
in the unknown. And I think that if you feed unknown into any situation, people consider the worst first. It's like, the sky is falling.
Nature, right. I mean, it's,
Mm-hmm. But the 5 things, and we won't go into these at length at all, but there's a punchline here coming. The 5 things that are causing this is limited inventory. That's not news. Construction lag. That's not news. But we know the builders are happy.
Yeah.
They're happier than they have been. But how fast can you build a house? Then new buyer demographics. So we're talking about the millennials. And there's fewer of them because they're still staying with mom and dad because it's tougher to affordability. banks conservative lending. Are they being a more conservative? I think if you qualify, you qualify. Probably, maybe.
Yeah, this is one of the ones that when I read that, I was like, no, not really. It says
No.
if banks loosen up. Well, no, not. Sustainable home ownership is something that is not going to go away.
Yeah.
So they're not going to just release, just start all of a sudden loosening up guidelines so people can afford to go into foreclosure.
Right. And then they said the scarcity of foreclosures, which I was like, and what has that got to do with anything? But if you read to the very bottom of this thing, I'll even point it out to you. Ding. See that arrow goes there. It says, this article, I got to do this right, and I messed it up last time. This article was produced via automated technology and then fine-tuned and verified for accuracy by a member of Go Banking Rates editorial team. Here's my point. Somebody chat GPT'd why that would be almost what's the word for that? Confirmation bias. Give me 5 reasons the housing market is reversing. Is that true?
Yeah.
But ChatGPT is going to answer that.
Yeah. I like how it brought up that 3 though, the millennials and the changing stuff. There's I've actually read a couple articles on that, and it's kind of weird. It's of the stuff of how buyers are changing and what they're looking for in the houses and stuff. We'll have to talk about that next week.
Well, right? It's affordability, room your homes, opportunity for DIY. It's just fixer-uppers, cost-effective locations, farther from town. There's.
Well, they're also looking for things for their dogs, and office space, and less about their partners. That's what I'm tripping on. It's like, what do these millennials have wives that we didn't have? Because last I always heard was like when you got in a real estate car, the guy was like, "Hey, just make your wife happy, right?" I mean, in there does it mention your wife in this thing? And I'm like, ooh.
Well, there's a couple. We'll save them for next week because we've pushed it over. There was 2 things. That Tori Spelling, if you know who that is, Aaron Spelling's daughter, and she got into a little bit of a fray with a realtor. We'll bring that up next week. And then the other one that I will touch on next week is a lot of people buying houses. And is this what you were talking about?
Yes.
Care more about their pets than their.
Yeah. Which is
I can't tell you the number of houses over the years that I have sold that has lost $40,000-$50,000 worth of value because they had 2 Labrador retrievers.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah.
And I like the dogs, but you go to the back door and there's it's shredded,
Yeah. Right.
You gonna fix this? No. Oh God, that was fun. Rodney, any Philip, Wendy, Ange, if you're watching after the fact, would love just saying hi to you. Any final thoughts?
No, I thought it was good stuff today. I like the contrasting opinions from some of the smartest people in the world. It's pretty cool. It's good to see how like that guy Shiller.
Yeah.
I mean, Harvard guy. He's got an index named after him, right? We're not talking about the Rodney Wilds index, right? So I may sound like a bozo, disagreeing with, but I just like the different opinions. It's I like reviewing that. It's good stuff to see for everybody, and everybody takes it and formulate their own opinion for it, right?
Correct. Yeah, and it'll be interesting in this next few weeks to see when they bump the rates. My bet is it's not even going to be a blip on the radar. People have gotten so used to it. But we'll see. We'll talk about that next week. We got any headlines. So, any other final thoughts, buddy?
That's it, my man. Have a great week.
Rodney, thank you for everything. Thanks for being here as always. I appreciate you very
I
much.
appreciate you. Thanks for everybody
See ya.
listening.
Bye-bye.
See